I wanted to do a video specifically to look at the comparison between a original release of a game and a slash release. There's been some discussion lately on the Big Box PC Game Collectors group on Facebook about slash releases, how to identify them, why sometimes you see auctions where they're selling for really high amounts for no apparent reason. And I think that there might be some relatively new collectors who might not know what a slash release is and might not know how to distinguish a slash release from an original release. So that's the reason why I'm doing this specific video today. So on the right side here, I have a copy of The Bard's Tale 2, The Destiny Knight. This is an original release of The Bard's Tale 2 for the IBM PC. And here on the left, I have a slash release. And what slash really is there was a company, GT Interactive, that went by slash as one of their brand names. And they used to buy up the rights to republish games that were already sort of past their shelf life. They weren't really being sold by the original manufacturers anymore. And they'd re-release those, which was a great service that they performed because they kept these games on the market after their original shelf life. But they didn't really release these games with the same quality as was in the original releases, as we'll see in a moment. Basically, they just wanted to get it out there as sort of a budget release. The problem that we're seeing now is we see on eBay, for example, that sellers are selling these budget releases, and sometimes buyers are paying a very high premium for them. They might be shrink-wrapped, and therefore the buyer thinks they're getting a shrink-wrapped new game, and may not be aware that this is a slash release, quote-unquote, that's really not anywhere near as high quality as the original. And the reason why I chose The Bard's Tale 2 specifically is that this game that I have here is what I would consider the prototypical slash release. And you'll see why in a minute. Not every slash release has all of the characteristics we'll see here on this one. Sometimes they have some or not others, depending on what exactly they were released and was Slash able to reuse some of the components, for example. But this one here is pretty much everything you might ever expect to see in a slash release. So first of all, just from looking at these two boxes, you can notice a few things about them that are different. Number one, and this is something which is maybe the most obvious thing that you'll typically find in a slash release. This original release has a sticker, a system sticker over here, saying that it's made for the IBM PC and giving all the different information. Now, the reason why that sticker was necessary was that they also made the game for other platforms, like the Amiga, for example, and they needed a way to distinguish which platform you're actually purchasing. Now, when Slash got around to releasing their version, at that point, the IBM release was really the only one that people cared about, and they didn't need a sticker anymore. They just basically printed this label on the box. Like, they wanted it to look like the original release did, I guess. They didn't really need this, to be honest, so maybe they wanted to have their requirements there. But bottom line is they printed this directly on the box, so you can see it's white, it's printed on. That's pretty much the biggest giveaway on most slash releases, that it's a slash release. Number two. You'll see here that this sticker says 3.5 and 5.25 inch discs are both included. That's the way it was back in the original release. Newer release, 3.5 inch media enclosed, because nobody really cared about 5.25 inch drives anymore, so that's another clue. Number three, this is hard to see in the video most likely, but if you have these two boxes in front of you, you can easily see that the quality of the printing on this original box is much better than the quality of the printing on the re-release. And look at this. You can look at the Electronic Arts logo. You look at the Interplay logo here. I think the EA logo is probably the easiest one to see. On the original release box, the EA logo and the EA words are very clearly printed. And here, it looks a little more smudged. And that goes for the whole box, really. And that's because this is really, at the end of the day, like a cheaper type of photocopy, and it's not an original. That's three already. Number four. If you look at the original box release of The Bard's Tale 2, you'll see that it opens up. It's a two-piece box. It opens up like this. That, I guess, was too difficult for them to do or too expensive for them to do in the re-release. So they made it a one-piece box, which opens at the top, opens at the bottom. And again, that's something which you'll fairly commonly see on Slash releases. For example, for Sierra games. Sierra games commonly came in a two-piece box with a slipcover, the original release. In Slash releases, often, instead of the two-piece box, you'll get a one-piece white plain box with a slipcover. So that's another example. Finally, this one, like I said, is the prototypical Slash release. So we have a really good clue, which you won't always find. That's in the original release, this is the back. On the re-release, you may have seen it before, we have this nice sticker that says Slash Corporation Exclusive Distributor. So if you see that, basically you want to run, you know it's definitely a Slash release, and that's what you're dealing with. But you won't always get that again. So now that we've looked at the outside of the box, let's look at the inside. I'm going to open up the original release Bard's Tale 2, and let's see what's inside. Let's examine the contents. So first of all, you might note that the inside cover of the box has a nice map on it. So let's note that. We have the discs. Again, we have a 3.5-inch disc. We have two 5.25-inch discs with nice sleeves. And we have a manual. And then in addition to that, we have a command summary card for IBM. And again, there's other platforms, so there's other command summary cards for other versions. We have a registration card for Electronic Arts. And we have a clue book advertisement. Now, what is in the Slash release? I'm going to try to get them out one at a time, so I'm just going to dump it out there, and then we can see what was inside. Okay, so first of all, let's look at this. Obviously, they could not put a map on the inside cover because there is no inside cover. It's just basically a one-piece box. They were nice enough to give a color map that is pretty much the same as the original, although it's not quite the same. The form factor is a little bit different. But this is actually a nice touch that they were willing to do that. Let's look at the floppy disk. So obviously there was no 5.25-inch disk. We said that before. There's only a 3.5 on this version. Obviously when you compare the two disks, you can see very clearly this is the original. This one here is basically the label is like a cheap photocopy. They didn't even bother to photocopy it really. They just sort of retyped it on I don't know what. This is obviously a re-release, and this is the type of content you should expect when you're buying a re-release product or a Slash version. It might be sealed, it might be the nicest shrink wrap in the world, but underneath, this is what you get. Now let's look at the manual. So this is the manual for the original release. Here's the manual for the Slash release. And as you can see, all they've done here is just take the manual and photocopy it. And they couldn't even really do a very good job because this is a square manual. And they wanted to use a cheaper, I guess, just fold over regular 8.5 by 11 piece of paper, and which this is not square, obviously. So we got a manual at the end of the day, which doesn't use a lot of space at the top and the bottom. Also, it's photocopied and it's hard to read. And in general, it's just a very low quality manual. Again, that's what you get with a re-release. The same thing extends to the command summary card. Here we have the nice one from the original release. Here from the re-release, we have the cheaper, smaller, photocopied version. Again, you get what you pay for. Finally, the registration card. Not much difference, but this is an Electronic Arts card for the original release. Here we have a registration card for Slash Corporation, which you won't always see. Most of these Slash releases didn't have this type of thing. It really depends exactly on when it was produced and the era, but here you have a very clear example of a Slash registration card. So bottom line, there's also no clue book offer in the Slash release, but that's okay. The bottom line is there's a lot of differences between these two releases. It's not just cosmetic, although the cosmetics is probably the worst thing about it. This is just uglier to look at and deal with. But the contents are actually very different. So it's really important, again, to know what you're buying, what you're getting into, and be able to make a good informed decision as a consumer and not just buy something because it looks like it might be new, looks like it might be good, and you're getting something completely different. So I hope that was useful, everybody, and have a good day.